Okay. Good morning. My name is Hugh James, and I'm happy to be presenting today's devotional. In the interest of time, and because I can kind of ramble, I've got some notes, and I'm going to refer to those while we go along. Please excuse me in advance. Let me first say that, like you, I really miss in-person services and gatherings. I also know firsthand the seriousness of this virus, and thus our need to be cautious in our return. Please know that Ned and Paula and the vestry and the safety committee are all and others are working very hard to come up with a plan and have it ready so that when it's deemed safe and appropriate that we can implement the plan. And in the meantime, I've really just absolutely loved these devotionals and have just been really impressed by how incredible they have been, and it really helps stay connected, and have loved them. And I hope you have too. My devotional is about being a coronavirus survivor. It sounds a bit dramatic, but and thankfully it is a little bit. But some of you know folks who have had coronavirus, but many of you probably don't. We've had a few in the parish with it, but not many. I didn't know Dr. Willis very well, but I've heard from really a lot of people what an incredible man he was. And it was a very moving experience for me to visit him in the hospital before his passing, as a representative of the Advent at a time when we weren't really allowing any visitors at the hospital for COVID, and it was a really difficult time, but a very moving experience, and we said prayers together. My brush with the Rona was months ago, and so early in the process in Spartanburg County that even many of my friends at the hospital, when I came back, jokingly called me Typhoid Mary. But my story is one of both sickness and fear, and it's a story of connecting with God during a really difficult time. Tillman and I went skiing out west in mid-March, and when things were still open out there, and there were only a few cases in America being reported. I later found out that while we were there, Park City, where we were, was the third in per capita occurrence of COVID-19 behind New York City and Italy. So we were in the eye of the storm, to say the least, and didn't even know it. We returned home, and later that following week, I came down with flu-like symptoms. I remember being fairly restless one night, and the next morning, a Friday morning, I was supposed to be in the office and woke up, and I felt kind of swimmy-headed and weak, and kind of had that skin crawling feeling like you get with the flu, and took a shower and kind of powered through it like I normally would, and went to work, got to the office, and felt kind of feverish, so I got them to take my temperature, and knowing that I was going to be seeing patients, when I saw that the temperature was 999, I knew that I couldn't see them and needed to go get tested. So I went next door to Doug, to my medical doctor, and he tested me for the flu, and both flu A and flu B were negative, and so then he basically pithed me with the through the nose nasal swab, and sent me home to be quarantined. By the time I got home, I really no longer had any symptoms, and really for the next week didn't get much, just little flares here and there of weakness or maybe a cough, but not much cough, because I remember thinking I probably was going to be negative for the test, and I just had the flu because I just wasn't really coughing that much. But anyway, on that following Tuesday, I got a phone call from the doc, and he said I had coronavirus, and it was really, during that week that I really wasn't having symptoms while I was waiting, I was isolated in a room. My family didn't want to have anything to do with me. They locked me in the doors, wouldn't let me out, and so I was basically just kind of left to find so, trying to occupy my time. So I got 13,000 steps in that isolated room, walking around, talking to people on the phone, and reading about coronavirus. And so when I got the positive result, I knew that hydroxychloroquine was being used. So I did start that. But 2 days later, I was kind of took a turn for the worst. And the next week or 10 days was really bad. And I didn't have to go to the hospital, but I lost about 10 to 12 pounds and felt terrible. I remember all day, every day, I felt weak, and I had really no appetite, and just that really miserable kind of flu feeling. But then I'd get these flares where they'd kind of come on with my cough worsening. It was a dry cough, but it would just get a lot worse, and I'd feel this chest pain at my lower sternum, and then I'd get these really splitting headaches and feel kind of nauseated. They lasted about 4 or 5 hours, so you kind of and I did that regularly throughout that week or 10 days. So you kind of got used to figuring out that they were going to be that long, so you could look forward to when they'd finally go away. And then through the night I'd sleep and wake up the next day and kind of start it all over again. And I remember, just thinking every day, when is this going to end? So yeah, it was no fun, and it was I would definitely say that it was the sickest I've been in my life. I haven't been sick a lot, so that's not necessarily telling you anything, but I definitely felt like it was worse than the flu for folks that you've heard say that. But I didn't go to the hospital, and I didn't get put on a ventilator, and they were big fears of mine. But I was thankful that those things didn't happen. But because I'd read so much and seen so many newscasts about the virus, I was really in fear of having something like that happen. Also, there was really no one, it was so early, there was really nobody out there that I knew that had the virus that I could call on to say, hey, what do you expect? What should I expect? And things like that. And that just kind of added to the fear. And I really found that fear interferes with your relationship with God. It's a wall. And you really have to find a way to connect. And I think God really puts us through these difficult times because He wants us to draw Him in and find ways to connect. And for me, and I'm sure most, prayer and Scripture is connecting with God, and reading His Word is where you get your strength. And I really got a lot of strength from Him in that way. And there were probably 5 or 6 verses or scriptures that I relied upon. I kind of committed a couple of them to memory. One of them was is Isaiah 41:10, where it says, "Do not be in fear. I am with you. Do not be dismayed. I am your God. I will strengthen you and I will help you. I will raise you up with my righteous right hand." And the other one was Philippians 4:6-8, which I'm sure most of you have heard and many of you probably know well. So I believe in those sick moments that fear was my weakness and God was my strength. He built courage in me by speaking to me through Scripture. And because there's certain, kind of warm, provoking parts of Scripture that I have identified, I felt like going into this that I was able to rely on that Scripture to feel close to God during a time that was, really, there was full of fear and a difficult time to do so. And it really, I grew in my relationship with God as a result of it. And Scripture is what helped keep me there and kept God speaking to me. The words that I would rely on typically were just so full of power and might that I knew God was with me and would be okay. So I learned how important having and knowing that the Scripture moves you and draws you close to God and allows you to get past the fear of difficult times. So that's my story, and I thank you for the opportunity to share my experience with God's love with you. God bless you, and I hope you have a great day today.